Good start. It's a very faster journey into the future. It's really great to be here in this incredibly exciting city, this dynamic place that I've really enjoyed being in before and have enjoyed being here again. My question to you is, what kind of future will it be? Either we take hold of the future, or the future takes hold of us. You can think of the future as just something which comes towards you at 5 million miles per hour, which you get ready for, that you react to, that you prepare your business for in terms of your strategic planning. Or you can say, we are history makers. The decisions that you make today will create the history for tomorrow. That's what Toshiba has done consistently year after year. That's what your companies have been doing year after year. So that's a different way of viewing the future. It's saying we create it, we manage it, and that's an exciting place to be because no longer are we victims of some mega trend that can come hit us in the back of the neck from other parts of Asia perhaps, but we're actually in control and we can see our way forward. So I want to divide the future into 6 pieces. They spell the word future, F-U-T-U-R-E. And we're going to spend more time on the first couple of pages because I think they're particularly important as you think about our mobile telecommunications type of world. And so the first phase, of course, is fast and to do with the speed of change. And the trouble, my friends, is that for most CEOs of most companies, the world can actually change faster than they can organize a board meeting. And that's one of their primary challenges right now. You know, I often spend my time not looking at the center of the radar screen. I spend my time looking at the outer edge, the stuff that's wild cards, these low probability but relatively high impact risks that can come crashing into any business plan. These are very unlikely things. There may be a 1% risk wild card, but inside any one of your own businesses, we can find quite easily 300 or 400 such wild cards that could operate. Just one example right now, of course, is bird flu. And we don't know what the risk is of bird flu starting to mutate, so it starts to spread rapidly amongst people. We do know that the World Health Organization considers that to be 100% risk. If it happened at some point, something like bird flu emerging somewhere like Hong Kong or somewhere else and starting to spread rapidly. And the biggest wild card of all, perhaps, is trying to understand what the emotional reaction might be to people around if that was to start to happen. Irrespective of the death toll, it might turn out to be just a bad dose of ordinary kind of flu. And nevertheless, it could be enough to close the Chinese border because the Chinese government already said they would do that if bird flu was shown to be spreading rapidly amongst Chinese people. It could be enough for the borders to be closed here. There are all kinds of uncertainties in our world, and they can come crashing in, as I say, to even a telecom company, whatever you are. So, where do we go? Well, of course, technology has moved an awfully long way since that ship was built that first brought Cook here. What will it be in the future? Well, the future is not really about technology. I would suggest to you that technology is really only part of the picture. The real story is emotion. It's the engagement of technology with our lives, with the passions that we have. And that's the lesson of history. History is dominated by the emotional reactions to events rather than the events themselves. Some of you will remember that 7 people blew themselves up on the underground, the metro, in my city of London, where I was just over 36 hours ago. And when that happened, some people, even in my country, said, Patrick, how can you possibly live and breathe in London anymore? Don't you think you want to move house and go out into the country? And I looked at them like they were aliens from outer space. And I said, I'm very happy to live in my city. And in fact, I've worked out from the math that even if a terrorist was to blow himself up on the underground, every week it would still be $1 safer to travel home on the metro than to walk. Why? Because I've done the figures. But you see, the future isn't necessarily rational. The future, as I say, is emotion. The big question is, what kind of emotions will these people have as they grow up? Or maybe teenagers today. I mean, look at SMS. But before we do that, I just want to talk about my own mother before I talk about some other members of my family. Okay, I'll get her out of the way. My mum is very traditional when it comes to technology. In fact, she said She said for years she'd never even get a mobile phone. She said they were a waste of time. And as for the internet, it was the incarnation of the devil himself. The thought of actually giving your credit card details to someone that you've never even met, you must be mad. She wouldn't even do it over the phone. And as for trading stocks and shares, forget it. Well, one day, something happened. I had a phone call from my mum, and I thought that the roof must have fallen in or something because of the tone of the voice. She said, "Can you come round? Really serious. I need you to stay here." So, not knowing what the problem was, I went round. And she said, "I have got a huge problem in my social life." She said, "The problem is that everybody's making all these amazing arrangements to go to a theatre, the cinema, play golf, whatever it is. But then they do it all by email, and then they pop a note in the post. And by the time the note comes, it's 3 weeks late." So she said, "I need to go online. So can you take me down to a computer shop and sort me out?" So we went down to, I looked at her a little oddly because, of course, this is someone who doesn't have a mobile phone, but I said, "Okay, I'm happy to spend your money." So we went down and I showed her the little machine. No. I showed her the big desktop machine. No. She said, "I need one of those big portables." And so we chose Windows XP 2000 Professional. And she said it needs something that's broad and broadband it needs, and I need a video camera for Skype something. And anyway, and she said I need to do it in the garden. Now, why she needed to do it in the garden, I don't know, but we came out with a wireless network running at 2 megabits per second, plus the video cam, plus all the other stuff, Windows XP Professional, Skype, you name it, we had it, and a video phone. And then I got another phone call 2 days later. She said, "Patrick, I'm sorry to trouble you again, but I've got a terrible problem. I'm phoning my bank on my video phone. I can't see them, and they can't see me." And of course, what had happened is my mum had travelled 35 years in 3.5 hours, and she left her bank behind. And what had happened was her bank had regularly done market research for people like them and asked them about whether they would trade online. No. Whether they give a credit card details. You must be insane. And then eventually, suddenly, she moved and left them behind. Here's the question. How long do you think it would take a large bank like HSBC or some other huge player, Bank of America, to implement video calling 3G technology across every desk of every relationship manager, every call center operative, and every senior executive throughout the whole institution worldwide? How long would it take them?
6 months.
6 months? Wow, you better join them quickly. I'll tell you what the CIOs will usually say from such large institutions. They will say 2 years. And as they say that, everyone else from the same institution is rolling around, killing themselves with laughter, because they know the truth. How long will it take the board of a large institution to make the decision?
5 months.
Right, okay, 3 years. And then it takes 2 years to roll it out, and another 2 years to get the glitches out, and by which time, of course, it's completely irrelevant because the technology moved up. It's a bit like Royal British Airways. See, I came down on British Airways, business class, which is nice because they've got power sockets in every seat. Now, the American Airlines have had power sockets in every economy seat for years. And you know what? One day, British Airways will make a huge announcement. I'm very fond of BA, it's my national airline, but give me a break. See, they'll get an announcement, they'll say, "Ladies and gentlemen, I'm very proud to announce that we have now got, finally, after 10 years, power sockets in every single seat." By the way, it's necessary. Why? Because some of the big portables, of course, run out of power very quickly. But the point is, at the point when they've finally done it, which will be 2009, 2010, 2011, because they spent so many years listening to market research of people who said in 1996-7 when they ordered their plane, that yes, they might do an occasional email, but who would use a PC for 11 hours on a long flight? In 1996-7, no one would have imagined it, but now we all have to. So British Airways lost the plot by listening to customers and delivering what they asked for. American Airlines understood. I sent a picture. I said, "I knew my mum." You listen to people like my mum, but don't believe them. Please. If you listen, I shall get mad with you. Listen very carefully, respect her, honor her opinions, treat her with huge respect, and then recognize that she is limited in her own view of the world and has no idea what she will actually want. What we need to do now is take that huge understanding of my mother and create a vision of a new kind of environment and try to imagine how she might behave within it. And that's how we future. And that's the lesson of market research. Now, I'm going to show you a market research oddity. I'm going to show you a video of a technology product that was advertised on British TV. And these TV ads scored 20 out of 20 in market research popularity. People absolutely loved it. But when it was shown on TV, there was a huge reaction, and it was taken up. And I want you to tell me why. Well, what's wrong with sense of humor in my country? That's what I'm what's wrong with that? Why was it banned? For heaven's sake, can anybody give me any rational, reasonable idea why this could have been banned on British TV? Nudity! Disgusting. Yes. Okay. Any other ideas? What? Please help me.
Fear, emotion.
Fear, emotion. Yes. Fear of what?
Death.
Death. Yes. Any other thoughts as to why this video got such a big reaction? This is a game video, for heaven's sake. Oh, well, you know what? There's something quite true about that video. Put your hands in the air if you noticed that Christmas Day came around 3 days earlier this year than it did the year before. Every year it comes around a little bit sooner than the year before. You notice that? Put your hands up, right? You notice life is speeding up. As you get older, your biological clock slows down, but your perception time speeds up. It's a little bit strange. I'm 49 years old. Did you know that probably 3/4, even if I live till I'm over 100, it is possible that 3/4 of my entire conscious life is already over. Isn't that a strange thought? Why? Because our conscious life is interpreting the length of each day as shorter than the day before. And that is an emotional thing. And that's what that video is about. The idea that life spins by, technology speeds things up, but actually as human beings still remain the same. And that's a profound challenge. And you know what? As young people grow up, they see these things too, and their emotions are different, but they're also engaged. That's why SMS is a successful technology, and voice call is also there. You know, my daughter says she's now 19, but I'll show you a video of her when she was 17 in a few minutes, seconds, and she would say, oh, voice call. That's so last century, Dad. I'm surprised you still use the phone. Why? Because text is so important. Why is text important? Now, people who are 45, 55-year-olds says, oh, well, it's just because young people haven't got the cash to make the call. Nonsense. Even if you gave my daughter £100 or $100 US or $100 Australian dollars to make voice calls, you'd find she's still using text. Why? Because of emotion. You see now? Yes. Emotion. And you see it in chat. Because text is a form of chat. Put your hands in the air if you use more than one chat screen at once. Fairly often. Okay, well, you're quite unusual. Put your hands in the air if you just don't get it with chat, you just don't like chat. Put your hands in. Okay, so most people aren't into the chat world at all, but some of you are. And the fact is that if you were 20 years younger, all the hands would be up. And my daughter is here using up to 10 or 12 chat screens at once. And she is the agony aunt of the entire year in her school. And what she's doing here is she's solving the emotional problems of all of her class. These aren't strangers she's chatting to, these are close friends. And he says to her, pick up the phone, because you can speak to them at 120 words per minute. She's so bad, I'm managing 85 with my little fingers. I said, well, why did you pick up the phone? No, Dad, you just don't understand. And then she told me a story. She said, and I've changed the story a little bit because I don't want to compromise the privacy of the person she's talking about. There's a guy in my class, she said, and I said to him, he came up, looked on the chat screen, said, hi, Dick, and carried on with all my other 11. And she said, hi, and how are you? And fine, not so fine. Oh, sorry to hear that. When he goes quiet for 10 minutes. You still there? Yep. So what's not so fine then? 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. Then a little sentence comes back and he says, well, it seems at home, actually. Oh, sorry. How's that? 10, 15, 20 minutes, 25, 30 minutes, nothing is happening. But he knows that Elizabeth is waiting for him. He knows that there's no pressure to talk right now, because he knows that Elizabeth can go to the restroom, she can go and have dinner, she can do her homework, she can write a song, she can do whatever she wants to, and when she's ready and he's ready, they'll be communicating again. Eventually, after about another 25 minutes, he starts to explain what's happened. And what's happened, he's crying now, although she doesn't know that. On the other end of the phone, on that chat call, he's crying. Why? Because his mum, well, he was trying to tell her, and it's taken him that long to tell her. Every time he tries to write this, he cannot even press the return key. He deletes it all. He's been writing solidly for half an hour now, and he's reduced 8 or 10 words. And occasionally he presses the return key and almost immediately regrets the escape of this information, and wishes he could suck it back down the airline. Then it's gone. And what's happening is he's gradually telling my daughter that the reason he wasn't in school is because his mum left the previous night. But what's different is that she's packed and she took everything, and she ain't coming back. Because she's often gone, but usually to come back. Now, if the conversation had gone by phone, he didn't have any words for this guy. He's under pressure to produce words in a continuous stream of consciousness, and he can't do it about things that really matter. So what we go, hi, how are you? I'm not fine. How do you go? Fine. Oh, yeah, watching sport. Yeah, it's boring, isn't it? Okay, see you tomorrow. Hi, bye. He's gone. But on chat, he was able to dig into the very depths of his being without pressure, and produce one of the most emotionally intense conversations he has ever had with another human being. And this is why chat is important to young people. It's just one of the reasons why. As I say, we connect with emotion, we understand why technologies work and why others fail. That's why dating works. The search for love is very intense online. That's why people are falling in love from Australia, they're falling in love with people in China, or in New Zealand, or in Singapore, or in London. And it's a genuine relationship, and you might laugh at it, but actually, some of these relationships are lasting a very long time. Now, yeah, of course, we could talk about technology adventures and the extraordinary growth of things like Skype, and they will continue. And talking of eBay, we could also talk about eBay and how eBay itself could turn into a new model for banking, for getting hold of loans, and just about anything else. But, I want to go beyond mobile email. We need to think about the next jump in demands from ordinary men and women in the working environment, in the leisure environment, the life beyond BlackBerry, life beyond pushing out, and different kinds of work with unimaginable growth in broadband availability, and how these things will actually be used. And the first thing I want to say really on that is this. My friends, we have a huge way to go to simplify this stuff. I'll give you an example. I'm one of the most wildest people around. I do most of my work when my body is physically in motion. In terms of preparation, I'm running a global business, running a global AIDS foundation that's operating in places like India, China, Uganda, Zambia, and Zimbabwe, places like that. It's all run from that PC and from other mobile technology I have in my pockets or I carry, just on me. And yet, it's fiendishly complicated. Let's just give you one example. And these are not just super products, I hasten to add, but there could be anybody's. And I confess too, I'm just about to have some trouble with some such products as well. Why? Because the products themselves are inherently complicated, because the software systems are complicated, the platforms are complicated, the engineering is complicated, and the net result is, however good the manufacturing components can be of one set, or the software can be of another product, when you put it all together, it's darn complicated, and I'll give you a good example. When I went round to my mum's house and I tried to install that stuff, now, listen, I've had my own IT company. I've been in IT consulting for years. I had my first IT company starting the world's first set of PCs in 1978-79. That's pre-Apple, pre-IBM PCs and the rest. So I've been in this stuff. Okay, I know how this stuff works. But I'll tell you this, it took me 2 whole days to get my mum's system right. And you're already guessing why, right? It was a broadband provider. Yeah, there's nothing wrong with the technology that was out of the box, but getting the broadband provider, getting the email service to work. Why? Because the broadband provider was a nice cheap offer, but they didn't have the support. They hadn't got the systems in place. The servers were crap. They didn't even know what their passwords were for some of the systems they created, and so on and so on. And then you've got other compatibility issues, other conflicts between different kinds of software, and it's a mess. Another example more recently is my aunt and uncle decided that they needed to upgrade their systems. And like a fool, I offered to do it. And it's taken me a week so far, and it's not complete. In fact, while I'm in Australia, my aunt has a big business, and she's also hugely involved in humanitarian work. She's downloading huge files all the time, every day. At the moment, as we speak, as I'm here, they're on holiday in Spain. And boy, oh boy, trying to explain to my aunt how she's going to get an email using a Spanish ISP and be able to send it out using Outlook, which means getting inside the settings of Outlook. Who's done that? Who's had to do that regularly? You have to go inside Outlook and change the settings for just about every time you go into a hotel. Put your hand up if you're doing that. You know what I'm talking about? This is crazy stuff. This is absolutely suicidal, maniacal, rubbish stuff. It's the stuff that should have been sorted out hundreds of years ago. It's crazy, isn't it? Really, it's absolutely mad, spot-rating, loony bonkers. You go into a hotel room, it should go straight online, right? It doesn't. Nah. Yes, it may go straight online, but as I say, many of the systems will still not work. So we've got a huge way to go. Another example is a PDA, personal organizer, getting to synchronize with your mobile, with your PC. Put your hand up if you have difficulty getting that to happen reliably. Put your hand up. My friends, this is an absolute disaster. You are the cream of the cream. You are the intellectual firepower of Australia and New Zealand. You are the experts of all experts on technology, nanotechnology, biotechnology, every technology, and you're having problems getting your PDAs to work with your PCs, and so am I. I'll tell you, it's an absolute nightmare for mobile computing. Why? Because our whole mobile computing premise is based on the idea of instant synchronization, total reliability, absolute backup, fantastic data security, and absolute jaunty work. I just bought a new PDA. I bought it at Heathrow Airport, and I thought, I've got 24 hours on the plane. I'm loving this. Pure joy to get a PDA to work with a PC. What do I do? Do you think I've done it yet? No. Why? Because I need the support calls about every 25 minutes. Why? Because what's in the manual of the PDA, there's no correspondence to reality. My latest joy was discovering, by only going online, this morning, when you were asleep and I was awake, I discovered that a way to actually delete all the information in the PDA. So I just asked again, because the way they tell you to delete it doesn't work. Oh, lovely choice. Now, my friend, I'm not knocking technology. I'm a complete techno-geek. I love all this stuff, and actually, I really enjoy sorting out people's messes on IT. But the fact is that we shouldn't have to do it. And we have a long way to go. And as I say, I'm speaking to everyone here. We all have a long way to go. And that means working together. It means giving the feedback. That's why you press the button to send the little pizza back to Microsoft. That's why you're involved in consumer surveys and the rest of it. It's absolutely vital as a community to learn how technology is used, and so we can find a seamless, simple, integrated environment which is fun, appeals to our emotions and gets the job done. And we're getting there. You know, it is fantastic what we can do. And the fact that I can run a website that has 10 million different users just from this PC here is extraordinary. Fast, don't worry, I'm not going to spend you for these faces. But it's to do with convergence and divergence, demographics, lifestyle, fashions, and fads. The fact is that while we're seeing a lot of talk about convergence, and I'm very excited about that, I'm also seeing a lot of divergence. Why? Because as technology costs fall, we buy all kinds of pieces of technology that are mobile, that do everything for us, but we usually use them for only one thing. And when you put design and innovation together, still there's something missing. See, you can have a clever device that you can have a PDA, for instance, that has got a video camera in it. It can take 2 hours of video. It can video stream. It can do your email. It can do your fax. It can do your diary. It can do PowerPoint. It can also mow the lawn, and it can mow the lawn, and it can cook you a meal. But the fact of the matter is that probably you're only going to use it for one thing. Probably 95% of the time. Put your hands up if you've got a PDA and you know you're only using one bit of this capability, and the rest you're going to use. Put your hands up. This is divergence. In fact, what's happening is that you're fulfilling those other needs by buying another product. And it's when we actually combine design, innovation, and the need, then we connect with passion. And passion is what drives technology. And of course, we see it in 2 examples. One is iPod, and the other is a BlackBerry, and the iPod is a good example of it. The iPod does not have a camera. It does not do email. It only plays an MP3 file. That's all it does. The nanopod does even less. Very little fewer MP3 files. And the fact is that that is a runaway bestseller product that's been built on divergence rather than convergence. Now, the future is video, and it won't be long perhaps before nanopods try to put one in. Actually, we're going to use different devices for those kind of things. Video is a runner. It has to run. Why? Because money's been poured into it to help encourage us to use it. Why is that? Because if you've got 2 megabits per second sitting in your pocket of mobile bandwidth, it is impossible to use it just for email. In fact, you would have to send 120 million emails every 2 hours just to use 2 megabits per second. So the only way that the telecom companies represented in this room can actually get a return on 2 megabits per second is by encouraging it to use broadband video. Not just tiny little video bits, not just the crude video bits you're seeing at the moment in the third of a megabit, but nice video conference quality video streamed from one device to another. And then we have another problem with mobiles, which is screen size. There's no point in having nice high-quality video on a screen size like that. So we're seeing a paradox, and this is divergence again, because the individual user, the individual mobile consumer, cannot work out what the ideal screen size. And I'm just the same. So I've got a fantastic large Cosmeo here, and it's a great machine. And fantastic when I'm jiggling around in the car and I can hardly see what I'm writing. Okay, and it's a nice screen for videos and things like that. But I've also got a dinky little thing up there, fraction of the size, a complete PC system, which is ideal for a cramped little environment in a seat doing a short-haul flight across Europe. Well, actually, I couldn't even undo that thing and get it out because there isn't enough room. And then we've got PDAs and all the rest of it. So we've got huge confusion. We've got phones that are going to have no screens at all, wireless enabled, just or speech enabled, just with a clip in the ear, and so on. So bandwidth requires screen. Screen requires science. The other interesting thing is cameras. You can have 2 cameras on a phone, but which one is the most important? I would argue often that it's the one looking out. Because if my family were to call me right now, actually, they know what I look like. They don't need to see an image of me talking on the stage, but they might be interested to see you. So it's the camera looking out that connects us with other people's experience and their world. Another aspect of technology is feminization. In fact, 70% of all online purchasing decisions are made by women, but 70% of all online banking accounts are opened by men. So the men of Australia and New Zealand are making a big decision to open the account, but the women are actually running them. Now, 70% of every developed country, 70% of all holidays are booked by women, 70% of all life insurance policies, 70% of all pensions, 70% of all retail, 70% of the books on Amazon purchased by women. And yet the systems are often designed by men. And we have a huge opportunity to refocus, to estrogenize holistic technologies, which at the moment, yeah, you guys are laughing about that, okay. But even in this conference itself, there are a certain number of women, but looking around, I think it's about 70-30 men to women. So this conference is testosterone filled. There's a technology magazine, which we read in Europe, called T3. Is that you?
Yeah.
Okay, I think it's become pretty much universal now. I don't know whether it's so in Australia, but my wife picks up T3s in first. Why? Because on every page, every front page, and every page, it will say naked woman. Is that the case here?
Yeah.
Right, okay. Now, what does that say to an estrogenized audience? I tell you, it doesn't do anything for my mom. Now, we laugh at it, but actually it's a powerful message. And it can be the same with technology companies. It can be the same all the way through. We make unconscious decisions on the basis of our own culture, which are entirely inappropriate for the audiences that we're trying to reach. I'll give you another example of that, which is older people. You know, I'm getting very old now. I'm nearly senile. I'm 49 years old. What that means is that I can just about read the type on this. But, you know, some of those slides, and some slides right from the back, I wouldn't be able to read without my glasses. And I'll tell you that the product manuals and even the information that appears on a PDA is almost illegible to me without my reading glasses on. Put your hand up if you had that problem recently. Now, you see, you're getting old. This whole generation of techies and Australian and New Zealand nerds are getting ancient. And the trouble is, we haven't caught up with it. We're still producing manuals with the same point size for typing and the instructions that you used to read easily when you were an 18-year-old lad. That's a serious issue. You may think it's, again, just a bit of a joke, like having news ladies on the front of T3 is a bit of a joke, and having microscopic writing that no one can read except those that are under the age of 8 is also a bit of a joke. But actually, they're very important. And they're tiny, tiny hints of huge opportunities in terms of repackaging, reformulating, recommunicating, and redirecting this technology. And making it easy to use for a generation of people in Australia and New Zealand who are surprisingly wealthy, despite all the worries about pensions and wealth and all the rest of it, who often do have quite a lot of disposable income and are well prepared to spend for quality and for easy use and simplicity and reliability. So we need to make it simple to use for all of us. Simple, reliable, mobile, effective, and improving our quality of life. Now, the final four I'm going to go through much more quickly. Tribalism is the most powerful force in the world today. It's the most powerful positive force and negative force. Tribalism is what makes one group of people say that we are us and you are they. Tribalism is what makes the British and you Australian. Tribalism is what makes you a citizen of Sydney and proud to be so, or of Melbourne, or Adelaide. Tribalism gives us community, relationships, team, belonging, and you know, every company produces tribes, and the most successful companies produce the strongest tribes. And mobile communities create tribes. Virtual tribes are formed in just about anywhere and everywhere right now, and every company is trying to get hold of this phenomenon. Tribal marketing works through niche communities and networks and relationships, just like that Microsoft video has been sent to 250 million people around the world along tribal connections. It's one of the most exciting issues for leadership for tomorrow, because as a leader, you can lead a team of 12, if you like, but going a bit, if you get even higher than that, you have trouble. Even Jesus found one of the 12 let him down. But you know what? You can have a tribe of 250,000 people. A tribal movement, a people movement, that's where you can take a whole community with you. Embracing an idea, embracing a technology, embracing an opportunity or a lifestyle decision. These things are powerful, and every marketer knows. And as I say, there's a huge effort has been going into strengthening tribes, making tribes work, getting to understand the tribes that we have, and turning this family so that every team you belong to is part of the tribe. Every business is part of the tribe, every business unit is part of the tribe, every customer joins your corporate tribe, and so on. It's a very, very exciting and dynamic concept. And you know what? When we get close to our tribes and are close to our customers, when we understand that our customers are part of our family, then we begin to understand another dimension about technology. Can I ask a question? Put your hands in the air if you find it irritating when you get through to a telecom company and they say, press 1 for accounts, press 2 for sales, press 3 for marketing, and then they keep you going through 4 or 5 layers, and then eventually you hold for about 28 minutes and they can cut off. Put your hands up. It makes you really angry. So angry, you want to put the phone on the ground and stamp on it, right? Okay? Now listen. Here's my next question. Confession time. Put your hands in the air if your company uses such a system. Okay, the rest of you just speak to something. Okay. The next question. What's happening here? You've just told me that these systems of technology, this particular example of technology, is morally evil. Right? Why? Because you say, well, I'm paid more than their receptionist. Why should I act as an unpaid receptionist for this company? Right? And my life's too short, I want to get through to human beings. So the issue then, the real issue is why are we using technology in this way? Actually, it's changing. I phoned trying to sort out this problem with the PDA from Australia using Skype. I made a London call, and I phoned my telecom company. And when I got through it, I was shocked. I nearly fell on the floor. I was answered by an Indian voice rather than a robot. That was a good idea, smart move, because the last time I phoned, I got through to 3/4 of an hour of robots. And this time I got to a human being in India, and you know what? This human being didn't even need to put me through. This human being sorted out a highly complicated data settings call for a 3G card inside a PDA and solved it in 2 or 3 minutes. Pure joy. I've seen company after company begin to reevaluate these things. So what did we learn? We learned that technology has fantastic power to change our lives, but we need to be very careful about where and how we use it and make sure that it actually builds our tribe, that it enhances the relationship that we have. So I want technology to help that telephone call. So next time I phone them, maybe tomorrow, either the call is taken this time in Singapore or Australia or in the London call center, I want them to know as I call in exactly who I am, the priority I have, the value of the whole relationship with my business, not just with this phone number or this account. I want them to intercept and bring the call immediately to someone who knows exactly how to solve the problem that I had previous days and knows everything about them. And I'm delighted to give that information away to them to enable them to do that. Fast, urban, tribal, universal. Universal, of course, is about globalization. It's about everything everywhere. And it's about technology, big fun. It's also about outsourcing, and I know there are concerns right here in this city about that issue and right across this whole region. And it's perfectly true, I haven't got the figures, but it's perfectly true that in the US, maybe 250,000 jobs will be lost to India and China in the next 24 months, 12 months maybe. And there will also be a number of jobs that will go from Australia, and that raises important questions. The good news is, and there are important work on this that's being done at London Business School, the good news is that for quite complicated reasons, to do with the fact that some of your goods become cheaper, and so you have more spending power, which can be going to local services here in Australia or New Zealand, and the fact that there is an aspiring middle class in these countries of India and China that are looking for Australian products and services. The good news is that probably, given enough time, almost another whole job will come back for everyone that you lose. And if you don't believe me, just look at this. You may find this a little bit scary, but actually there's a huge hope in here too for the Australian and New Zealand economy. If you look here, you'll see that in India, they produced 840,000 IT specialists last year, graduates from universities. Now, compared to my country of 60 million people, we only produced 8,400, and that was going in. So they produced 100 times what we produce in Britain, and I don't know how many multiples times what you produce in Australia of IT graduates, all of them were as well qualified as any that you'll find in our own universities, our two countries. And yet, that sounds scary, and it shows you that the outsourcing picture is not being driven so much by the cost. It's true that these people you can employ for maybe a fifth of the price in city. But it's not just cost. It's a question of sheer intellectual capital. The number of people available were all dynamic, entrepreneurial, on fire, creative people who are looking to solve some of these complex problems that we've been talking about. Looking to find simpler ways, cheaper ways, more cost-effective ways of doing the kinds of things that you and I are discussing over the next 2 days in terms of mobile computing, lifestyle issues, and all the rest. So that's really good news, and they're going to deliver it, and you're going to benefit. The other good news is that every one of these graduates is a rising, emerging middle-class person. Every one of them, in fact, is likely, through the amount of outsourcing funds that's going into their bank account, is likely to be supporting another 50 to 100 jobs in the economy around them, because money flows around at incredible speed, and you get spent in a city like Kolkata or Delhi or Mumbai. Believe me, I've been there. I work in these places. And as it happens, you get phenomenal growth, economic growth that runs in 7, 8, 9% per year, and that is how it's happening. And of course, you're seeing just out of IT graduates, you're seeing almost 1 million new consumers, plus their families. That's maybe another 5 million people moving up per year just out of IT graduates. 5 million new, aspiring, middle-class consumers, some of whom will want to travel here on holiday, some of whom will want Australian products and services, some of whom will drive all kinds of other industries in places like the United States, Germany, Italy, Sweden, Switzerland, Greece, Portugal, and those industries will then want to buy other bits and pieces of Australian goods and services and the rest. So, in summary, there's a huge engine of growth happening here, which I don't think we should be too scared about. We should be dynamic, flexible, creative, looking for business opportunities within it, and of course, looking to maximize inward investment into these countries in sensible ways. Now, so then, what about the future of IT and travel? How do we actually make these long distance relationships work? Well, in many companies that I talk to are already finding that they're doubling the amount of travel they do every 12 to 15 months. I know many people who are spending 6 weeks a year already cruising at 35,000 feet, actually cruising. And that's a big issue for you. Why? Well, because you're some of the most spaced out people I've ever met. Just geographically. I mean, you know, just to go to the restroom, you've got to take a 3-hour flight. The distances for someone in Europe like me, I mean, I can fly over 7 or 8 countries from London to Moscow, and I've gone from here to where? I'm still in Australia, right? Or I'm in the middle of some ocean. And the other challenge is daylight. You know, however much we put in all this virtual stuff, the sun is still the sun. And the north-south axis takes you to Vladivostok from here. Takes you through slices of Japan on the way, if you're lucky. An hour to the east, and you're in Beijing when you go up north. An hour to the west, you're in Tokyo, I think. I think that's right. But time zones are very important in trading. And the challenge to make these virtual relationships work. So yesterday, well, in fact, was it today? I can't even remember because of my clock, see. So I'm on British clock. So I've been working 3 all night, doing business in my country and across the whole of Europe. But my most fruitful hours were from 3 to 4 or 5 in your morning. So that's a challenge in a global village. It's an unsolved challenge. It's a very human one. But what it does mean, it means that your communication skills and devices and technologies have to be mobile, because there's no point in having them in the office, right? What is the point of having a great video conference suite, a great big TV studio, to communicate around the world at work? In fact, I can guarantee it's the worst place possibly for you to even think about having it. Why? Because you're going to be using it at 5 in the morning or 11 at night. Well, 7 in the morning, 10 at night. But nevertheless, it actually requires, therefore, to be built at home. So we're looking at a completely new way of thinking about working, and that only works if we're prepared to be mature and grown up about it. And I'm thinking about my country as well, in dealing with China, India, Australia. We have exactly the same issues. And what it means is we have to rethink the hours of work. Because how can you work from 7 in the morning or 6 in the morning or 4 in the morning until midnight? This is no life. What it means is we need to be thinking about allowing people to have space during the day. Now that sounds radical, but actually it happens quite naturally. It's like when you're a homework company, that's what you do. The sun is shining, lights are short, let's go for a walk, let's go to a wine bar, let's have lunch. My wife's at home and she's working as well. We're opportunistic. Why? Because my busiest time is going to be 11 o'clock tonight. So it's a complete rethink about life, about work. It's a complete rethink about where we put our bandwidth. This is my home, this is my TV studio, and in fact, this is a virtual wall behind me. It's a blue screen wall, which means that like the weatherman, I can be in front of anything I like, talking about it, and to me it's blue, but to you it's whatever I want. This is a Skype call that was running during the night. In fact, I was talking to my son and my youngest son and Sheila, my wife, and it was running on Skype. It cost me nothing from the hotel. And you know, when Sheila and I went to Tokyo recently, we ran a call and just started running it around for 36 hours. Why? Well, the idea of booking a video conference is so last century. The idea of booking a conference call, we need to get real. The technology has moved on. When broadband is free, when the technology is there and it only costs the light bulb in the projector, you just let it run. You just create a video wall that connects Sydney and to London and New York. And you say, well, that's a waste of money, because New York may be asleep when we're in there. So what? It's an optical illusion. It's a bit of virtual reality. We'll just wash one wall with the office in New York, wash another wall with the office in London, and whenever people are in, you can turn up the volume if you like. That's creative virtual worlds using yesterday's technology, because this technology has been around for a while. It's just falling in cost to zero. This is my office in action. During the height of the SARS epidemic, I gave a lecture to the World Bank. We couldn't gather together because, of course, travel was banned. And we've seen, therefore, hints of what we could do. So here we are, that's my screen, and we have 9 countries working there, all sharing our own experience how to tackle that particular problem. And it's easy to imagine a 30% fall in international face-to-face meetings, with a massive 66% increase in productivity. But to do that, it means we have to develop communication skills that we're not using at the moment. And one of them is to look into a camera. And that's all I'll say about video. You know, one of the problems about video conferences is you can't establish trust in it. You know that, right? It's difficult to close the deal. Why? Because it feels impersonal sometimes, doesn't it? I know some people who say they prefer to turn the camera off and go back to the phone. The reason it feels impersonal is because of no eye-to-eye contact. Most video conferences, you're looking at the bald patch on top of their head. Because they're looking at the picture here and the camera's on top of the screen. We need to fuse these two, which means putting a camera right in the middle of the screen here, or on my video wall right in the middle. So when you're looking at the individual, you're seeing right into their eyes and they're seeing your eyes. And my friends, if you want a video conference to work, you only need to learn one thing. Just forget the image of the other person, and for goodness sake, don't look at yourself. Just do it fine. Look into the lens of the camera, and they'll see the passion in your eyes, they'll see the integrity, and they'll trust you, and they will sign that deal. Believe me, if you want to test me on this, go home and try it out with a video camera. Hold the video camera there and look over to the right, look to the left, look down, look under, and then look into the lens of the camera and play back and look at the difference. It's absolutely dramatic, and it's the most powerful way to communicate. Now, forget old-style web, email, and all the rest. Think about RFID. RFID is radio frequency identification tags. They're microscopic PCs the size of a grain of sand. And Gillette themselves use 500 million of them. And you know the story, of course. Gillette tried, and then they got banned here in Australia. There was a big row in the US as well. There was never any evidence that any tagged razor blades had ever been sold in Australia. It was just a consumer boycott, just to be on the safe side. Why? Because technology, my friends. The future is not about technology, it's about emotion. And of course, RFIDs are quite emotional. The idea that you buy a razor blade, put it in your pocket, and other people can see the razor blade in your pocket, that's quite an emotional thing. And so also is the idea that people can read your credit card using a scanner and other things as well. And at that time we're also caught in the crossfire of this. But RFIDs will change us, they will change us all, they are already. Why? Because Walmart have already required all their biggest suppliers to tag every single box into the warehouse. That means 10 billion RFID tags every 12 months, and we're just starting. So we're talking about a world where 100 billion or 200 billion of these microscopic grains of sand will be entering the environment every year, each of them with software, hardware, microprocessor, permanent memory store, the ability to read and write, and by the way, they need no power and can last 100 years. They suck power out of the air in which they are, using electromagnetic waves, as you well know. And the manufacturing demand for these is soaring exponentially because it reduces the wholesale and distribution costs by up to 40%. It reduces theft by up to 70%. We're finding them in the travel industry, in airline tagging, we're finding them in clinical monitoring, and also a huge amount of data being formed. In fact, one box going through one warehouse in Melbourne can generate up to 2,500 separate pieces of data, all of which need to be analyzed in just 24 hours. So we're talking about huge amounts of data, but if they're combined with consumer behavior, you get amazing opportunities. And these tags are finding their way into the retail environment, even though it's quite sensitive. And we'll see more of that in the future. Now, can we connect these tags to brain tissue? Yes, we can. In fact, brains love tags. Brains love chips. They recognize them as intelligent things, and they wrap themselves around them. Brain tissue will go automatically to the surface of the chip and will start to communicate with it. It doesn't have to be taught to do so. It's a natural reflex. So we already have the technology to allow virtual thinking. In fact, rats have been trained to transmit virtual thoughts to other rats in different cases, in different locations, using wireless technology, mobile technology, implanted directly into their brains. Is it possible for me to send a Valentine's Day message to my wife as a text using a microscopic tag inside my brain direct to hers? Well, we have the technology to do it in one way or another. We already have the technology for me to send a signal to my wife, which she would feel inside herself. It would be hard for her to describe it to you, but she would know that I was wanting to send her a message saying I was thinking about her. And she would be able to distinguish between that and sending a message saying I'm in danger. It would be possible to do that using today's technology. I'm not telling you the future here, I'm telling you history. You tell me tomorrow. But remember, as I'm telling you that, you're already reacting emotionally. Why? Because the future is not about technology, it's about emotion. Radical. Radical is about single-issue activism and left-right politics and how it's all dead and how it's all been replaced by single-issue activism, whether it's genetically modified food, bird flu, and anything else as well. And there are lots of single issues regarding technology. We have just mentioned a few: privacy, counterfeiting, confidentiality, and a whole host of others, including reliability, systems integrity, security, hacking, internet email campaigns, spamming, and the rest. And we need global governments to deal with some of these global challenges. Now, we have to keep close to capitalist meaning and people bound to their capitalist meaning. Because technology is widespread. Here's another one. I have to tell you straight away that no animal was first for the making of this video. It causes amusement or outrage, depending on your philosophy of life. More seriously, radical causes, single issues, are driving politics today in every country of the world. And single issues tend to become regulations. Regulations shape what we do. And you know, behind it all is another question, which is really to do with ethics. And that, in a sense, is the most important phase that we've been touching it all the way through, because as soon as we talk about the future, we talk about emotion, and emotion is very close to our own values. And ethics is at the very heart of what we are, It's the basis of all that you do. It's the root of all the passions that you have. It's the reason why you get out of bed in the morning. I'm talking about the fire inside you. It doesn't matter whether it comes from your own sense of spirituality or whatever it is, but these things are important. Here are some statistics from my own country, which my friends tell me are fairly typical of many other countries. Those are in international businesses, but they're quite shocking. In my country at the moment, 90% of 30 to 40-year-olds are out of business. In fact, 60% of 25 to 35-year-olds are having a midlife crisis, an early midlife crisis. I think my son is one of them. He's 24 years old. He's just done a degree at Bristol, got a good degree, and he's now in .com, a really exciting, rapidly growing company, a technology company. And you know what? He phoned me up the other day. He's 16 weeks into his job. He's making a lot of money, seeing exponential growth and all the rest of it. Conversation goes like this. Hi, Dad. Oh, hi. How are you? How's the business? Oh, great. I'm thinking of downsizing and getting a life. First job, 16 weeks in. You know, he's typical. In fact, if you look at those who go into MBAs at the moment around the world, in the past they went, there is a short track to get to the board. Not now. Now, the short track to have a life, have choices, be reasonably successful, have money in your pocket, but above all, is about quality. And so that's a very important thing. Why is it important? Because mobile telecom enables us to do that. Mobile technologies of all kinds give us back choices that enable us to work at our own pace, to work in our own homes, at our own convenience. And yes, there's a time to remove the battery from your mobile phone and put it in a bucket of water. There are times we go offline or we get driven by these things. But telecom communications, mobile, whatever it is, can give us choices, so long as we remember what I said earlier. Either you take hold of the future, or it takes hold of you. Either you take hold of mobile technology and make it work for you, or you find that mobile technology will take hold of you and drive you into just an emotional mess. So it's very important to use these tools, to know what you want to do with them, and always keep focused on what it is that it's all for. And individuals are talking more about personal happiness than they were, that's true, but they're also talking about work-life balance. Put your hands in the air, and this is my final slide really. Put your hands in the air if you've had a serious conversation about getting a better balance in your life in the last 2 years. Put your hands up. Right? It's a forest, my friend. And you know what? I know we've always been under pressure, but it's a greater forest and there's more passion in that conversation than there was 10 years ago. We could discuss many reasons for it, but it's a global phenomenon. I'll tell you something else that's a global phenomenon as well. I want you to put your hands in the air if in the last 2 or 3 years you've given time to something for nothing. Let me explain. It may be that you sugar tins for the Red Cross after the tsunami disaster. It could be that you've helped out at your kids' school. It could be that you're a member of the church or the synagogue or whatever it is. It could be, my friends, that you just did clear some of the rubbish from outside the garden of an old lady next door who's broken her hip. It doesn't matter what it is, but if you don't something for nothing in the last 2 years, I want you to put your hands up now. And why did you do it? My friends, look around. You did it because of one word, community. You didn't do it for your family because it wasn't to do with them. You didn't do it for your close friends because it wasn't to do with them. You did it because somehow something inside you prompted you to do this thing for the sake of the community. Right? That's what it is. And those of you, those very few who didn't put up your hands, I'm sorry, it was unfair. I should have said, did you do it for 4 years? And you would have put your hands up. I should have said, will you do it when you were tired? You'd have put your hands up. Or I should have said, are you at the moment time poor but money rich, so you contracted it out? And you paid someone else to give it the time. That's what donations are all about. And then you'd have put your hand up as well. Why did I do that? I did that to remind us that we're part of a great humanity. That there's more to life than making a fast buck or the bottom line profit or shareholder value. And there's more to life than the geeks and the bikes and the bits and the bots that we all get confused with. Actually, life is about relationships. It's about family. That's the passionate conversation you have about work-life balance here. Life's about community. It's about improving things in ways that actually matter to us in the cities, the towns, the streets, the neighborhoods where we're there. And life's about wider things than that even. Put your hands in the air if you've had a passionate conversation about the war in Iraq, positive or negative, or one way or the other, in the last 2 years. Put your hands up. Do you know anybody in Iraq?
Yeah.
You do? Do you? One, two, and the rest of us probably don't. And yet we get passionate. Why? Because we're programmed that way. can actually stand answer to us whether the earth warms or whether it shrinks, whether the whales die out, or whether Saddam's in power or not. It matters to us. And these passions rule our lives in a very positive way. They make us human, and they make it good to be alive. And you know what? When we connect with all the passions that people have, we find ourselves building a better kind of future. And that's what technology is about at its best. It's when we connect with passion and we use technology to make those things happen. So technology is not an end in itself, but it enables us to build a better kind of future. And that really is the ultimate slogan for this conference, and I believe for all of our lives, for every company that you're in, for every technology you're interested in. It's technology, it's innovation, it's creativity, it's leadership. Why? For ourselves, yes. Absolutely. But also for those that we love and care for the communities we serve in, and for the wider world in which we live. Thank you very much.